Canada's political landscape is shifting, and the latest CBC poll tracker numbers give us a fresh look at where the parties stand. With the next federal election on the horizon, who's leading the race? Who's gaining ground? And which provinces could be the key battlegrounds? Let's break it all down, province by province, party by party, right now. National overview, Conservatives lead, but the race isn't over. With the latest polling numbers in, Canada's federal election is shaping up to be a highly competitive race. The Conservatives may be leading, but can the Liberals close the gap? And where do the other parties stand? Let's take a closer look. As of March 12, 2025, the Conservatives are ahead nationally with 39.8%. This puts them in a strong position, but not yet at a majority threshold. Their lead suggests momentum, but they'll need to secure key battlegrounds like Ontario and British Columbia to turn these numbers into real electoral victories. The Liberals, currently at 31.9%, are still within striking distance. While they remain strong in regions like Quebec and Atlantic Canada, they face an uphill battle to regain lost ground in other parts of the country. The NDP sits at 14%, continuing to play the role of a third force. While they have pockets of strong support, particularly in British Columbia and parts of Ontario, their overall numbers suggest they won't be a serious challenger for government. The Bloc Québécois holds 6.6%, maintaining a strong presence in Quebec. With the ability to swing ridings in their home province, they remain an influential player in the national political landscape. The Green Party is polling at 4.2%, struggling to make a significant impact beyond its traditional strongholds. Meanwhile, the People's Party of Canada sits at 2.5%, maintaining a small but loyal base of support. Other parties make up 1.1%, representing independent candidates and smaller political movements that could influence local races. With these numbers, the Conservatives are leading, but not comfortably enough to guarantee a majority. The Liberals still have a pathway to victory if they can reclaim key ridings. Meanwhile, the NDP, Greens, and PPC will be looking for opportunities to grow their influence. The real battle will be fought in swing provinces like Ontario, Quebec, and British Columbia, where close races could determine the final outcome. Will the Conservatives turn their lead into a government? Can the Liberals make a comeback? And what role will the smaller parties play? British Columbia is always a province to watch in Canadian elections. With a mix of urban, suburban, and rural ridings, political competition here is fierce. So, where do things stand? Right now, the Conservatives are leading in British Columbia with 42.5%, putting them in a strong position in the province. This represents a shift from past elections, where the race was often much closer. If this trend holds, the Conservatives could pick up key seats, particularly in the interior and the Fraser Valley. The Liberals are trailing at 29.7%, still holding a solid presence in urban areas like Vancouver, but facing stiff competition. Meanwhile, the NDP, traditionally strong in certain parts of British Columbia, is polling at 19.3%, lower than their historical highs, but still in contention in places like Vancouver Island and East Vancouver. The Green Party, at 6.1%, has always had a foothold in British Columbia, especially on Vancouver Island. However, they would need a major boost to expand beyond their usual strongholds. The PPC is at 1.6%, with limited influence, and other smaller parties make up just 0.9%. With a diverse political landscape, British Columbia could see some of the closest races in the country. Can the Conservatives maintain their lead and flip key Liberal and NDP held ridings? Will the Liberals hold on to their strong urban centers? And will the NDP or Greens make a surprise breakthrough? British Columbia remains a must-watch province in this election. Alberta has long been a conservative fortress, and the latest numbers show that this trend continues. But is there room for movement in this province? The Conservatives hold a dominant lead in Alberta, polling at 56.1%. This is no surprise, as the province has been a stronghold for the party for decades. Rural ridings and Calgary remain Conservative bastions, and Edmonton has been a battleground with some NDP and Liberal support. The Liberals sit at 20.8%, struggling to gain traction in a province where they have historically faced strong resistance. Meanwhile, the NDP at 16.3% has some pockets of support, particularly in Edmonton, but is far from challenging the Conservative dominance. The Greens at 2.5% and the PPC at 2.8% have minimal impact, while other parties make up just 1.6%. With such a strong Conservative lead, the main question isn't whether the party will win Alberta, it's by how much. Will the Liberals and NDP be able to hold on to their few seats? And will the PPC or Greens make any dent in the vote share? While Alberta may not decide the next government, its overwhelming Conservative support strengthens the party's national position. The Prairies have long been a stronghold for the Conservatives, and the latest numbers confirm their dominance. But can the Liberals or NDP carve out key victories? In Saskatchewan and Manitoba, the Conservatives maintain a commanding lead with 48.8%. This is a region where the party has historically performed well, and their support remains strong in both rural and urban ridings. The Liberals trail at 26%, with most of their support concentrated in urban centers like Winnipeg. The NDP at 17.9% is struggling to gain momentum, but could still hold on to key strongholds, particularly in Manitoba. The Greens are polling at 4.1%, while the PPC sits at 1.9%, showing little movement in these provinces. Other parties make up just 1.2%. With the Conservatives in firm control, the real question is whether the Liberals or NDP can flip any seats. Will Winnipeg remain competitive? Can the NDP improve its standing? And will voter turnout play a role in shifting the numbers? Saskatchewan and Manitoba may not decide the election, but every seat. Ontario is the heart of Canadian elections. With the largest number of seats in the country, the battle here could determine who forms the next government. The latest polling shows the Conservatives leading in Ontario with 42.5%, giving them a strong advantage in the province. However, the Liberals remain within striking distance at 35%. This sets up a fierce fight, particularly in the Greater Toronto area, where elections are often won or lost. The NDP at 13.9% continues to struggle to break through, though they may hold on to strongholds in urban centers like Toronto and Hamilton. The Greens are polling at 4.8%, while the PPC sits at 2.7%. Ontario's suburbs will be the real battleground. Can the Conservatives maintain their lead and flip key Liberal-held ridings? Or will the Liberals rally and close the gap? The NDP's performance could also be a factor in splitting the vote. With so much at stake, Ontario is once again the province to watch. The race is far from over, and every riding will count. Quebec's political landscape is always unique, and this election is shaping up to be no different. With multiple parties vying for dominance, the province remains unpredictable. In Quebec, the Liberals are holding on to the lead with 32.9%, but the Bloc Québécois remains a formidable force at 28.2%. The Conservatives, though historically weaker in the province, are polling at 23.8%, showing signs of growth. Meanwhile, the NDP, which once had a historic breakthrough in Quebec under Jack Layton, is struggling at just 8.5%. The Greens are polling at 3.5%, while the People's Party sits at 2%. The key takeaway: Quebec is once again proving to be a province where multiple parties have a real shot at winning seats. The Bloc is looking to consolidate its base. The Liberals are aiming to hold on to their urban strongholds, and the Conservatives are hoping to expand their presence. Will the Bloc be able to reclaim dominance? Can the Conservatives continue their growth? And will the Liberals keep enough support to stay ahead? Quebec's role in the next election will be crucial, and we'll be watching closely. Finally, we head to the East Coast, where the Liberals have traditionally dominated federal politics. But could that change in 2025? Atlantic Canada has long been a Liberal stronghold, and the latest polling numbers show they still have the edge. The Liberals lead with 43.9%, holding a comfortable margin over the Conservatives, who sit at 35%. While the gap is still significant, the Conservatives have been gaining ground compared to previous elections. If they continue this momentum, they could flip key ridings in provinces like New Brunswick and Nova Scotia. The NDP, meanwhile, is polling at 13.6%, which means they may struggle to gain seats in the region. The Greens hold 4.5%, and the PPC is at 2.1%, with other parties making up 0.9%. With just months to go, Atlantic Canada remains an important battleground. Can the Liberals maintain their dominance, or will the Conservatives pull off key upsets? With the Conservatives leading nationally, the Liberals holding key regions, and the Bloc Québécois making an impact in Quebec, the battle for Canada's future is far from over. These numbers are changing every week, and the race is only getting more intense. Will we see a shift in momentum? Who will come out on top? We'll be tracking every update, so make sure to like, share, and subscribe to stay ahead of the game.